Hello and welcome to Freedom and Four Paws, the show where we hear inspiring stories from amazing people travelling the world and living their best life, often with their pets in tow.
From slow mads to digital nomads, house and pet sitters, expats and families with their dogs on the road. In this podcast, find out how travel can truly set you free. Hello, it's Cooper and Sarah from the Freedom and Four Paws podcast. In this week's episode, we chat to a young lady who's been travelling through Central and South America using pet and house sitting as a means of accommodation.
Yeah, so Annemarie is someone that we met in our Facebook group about house sitting, pet sitting, travel and creative living. You can find us off our Facebook page, that's travelivelearn.com. We've got about 12,000 members in there at the moment, and we've been interviewing community members with their story for the Freedom and Four Paws podcast and vlogcast. And Annemarie stood out to us because she started giving community members advice on off-the-grid house sitting and travelling in South and Central America.
And when you're saying off-the-grid, Sarah, that means you're not connected to any electricity, water, there's no piping. It's all done naturally through the sun, wind, and collecting water and growing your own food.
Yeah, really fascinating and a really cool area, we thought, for discussion around travel and, of course, house and pet sitting. Now, if you'd like more information on any of this area, if you're an aspiring house sitter or pet sitter, or you just want to go traveling in the new year, come and join our VIP mailing list. You can find the links at travelivelearn.com. But without further ado, let's have a chat to Annemarie to hear her cool story of travels and house and pet sitting in South and Central America.
Tell us a little bit about your story so far, Annemarie.
Okay, well, basically, August last year, like deep lockdown in Melbourne. I work in the music industry and I book music and everything stopped. I was just basically grant writing to keep the venue afloat. And I have a friend that lives in Costa Rica that has a permaculture farm, and he's actually a country singer from Nashville. And just before the very first lockdown, I was just about to get on a plane and go to Austin to work at South by Southwest.
Wow.
And 2 days before, we went into lockdown. And so I didn't go, and it was like a big trip. It's like I planned it for my 40th. And that was like a big deal, and I was going to go. And yeah, so then I like had the itchy feet, and then we got to August, 18 months later. And I was just talking to my friend Humi, who had the farm, and I was just like, this is never ending. And I'm just, I don't want to change. And he said, why don't you come to Costa Rica and help me write a pitch deck? So he wanted to build an art eco event center in the jungle, off-grid, at his permaculture farm. And I've worked in organics before. So I applied. I got a special exception to leave the country. That was a lot of work, but I've worked in kind of the health food industry before. And got on that plane 2 days before Melbourne locked down again. That another slap lockdown. So I just managed to get on the plane and then get to Sydney and then get probably one of the only planes leaving the country.
Wow. It was meant to be.
Yeah. And then so I helped Humi at the farm for 7 months. We wrote a pitch deck to get funding, and he's still in the works with that. And then I was only meant to be there for 3 months, and I'm still here.
Nice.
And so I've been house sitting around Costa Rica, and it's just been a really beautiful experience because I'm getting to meet new people. I'm getting to meet lots of beautiful doggos and cats, and I'm really into natural therapies and herbalism. And so I've got to really learn about different areas and different lifestyles. And I've been in mountains, I've been off grid, I've been in, just all sorts of crazy things.
Incredible.
Annemarie, your point of difference is you do a lot of house sitting off the grid. Now, when I visualize that, I'm conjuring up somebody or a family who are completely disconnected from like power pipes, electricity, and the reliance on like the sun, the wind, gathering their own water, growing their own food. Is that
what it is?
Over the top, or is it close to that?
Well, if you're off grid, it means no power, no water. So solar power, composting toilets, power off the grid, and cooking generally with gas. So I started out at the permaculture farm, which was off-grid. So I kind of earned my wheels learning from Hume, who had been doing it for a long time. And he like run that place like a tight ship. So, the jungle really encroaches if you're like in deep jungle. Like it is there, you cannot ignore it. It's in your face. You've got to maintain everything. And, like you've got to watch your power because of the solar. You've got to be aware if you're running out of gas because then you can't cook. You get your water from the mountain on like a levitating kind of like it trickles down the mountain. So they've got to keep an eye on the water and the pipes and, so it's constant maintenance basically. So I started there and then I ended up getting to know the off-grid community because there's a heap of people doing it. And they grow food, but they also get stuff from a lot of the local eco farms and there's a lot of community involved.
Okay.
You are off-grid. So there's no shop, there's no letterbox, like, or anything.
Annemarie, it feels very much like your journey over the past year or two has been a little bit fated. Like, you've had one experience and it's led to another and it's led to another and you've met the right people. And tell us a little bit about how it's all unfolded and how you found house and pet sitting, for example, in amongst all of that. Like it just feels like you've gone on an adventure and it's just unfolded. Is that kind of what's happened for you?
It really has. And the interesting thing is a lot of people that do house sitting are not consistent. They do it and then there's a massive break. But I have been house sitting the whole time, one to the other, and the timing always works out. And, I've had people, and I kind of want longer house sits because I like to settle because I'm working as well.
Yep.
And I'm also like kind of pivoting with what I'm doing with work and I'm studying. So I'm kind of, my days go full. So I don't want to be moving every 2 weeks. So I applied on Trusted House Sitters. But what I did was I spent a lot of time on my house sitting thing because in Australia I worked at a cat fosterer. So I had experience with animals with trauma and I also ran my house as an Airbnb for 4 years. So I've had a lot of people coming and going. So I think because of that experience, it's been really consistent. I really understand animals.
Okay.
And my references are great. So people have actually contacted me as opposed to the other way around. So where I'm at the moment, they contacted me. So
wow, that's
luck.
Excellent.
Annemarie, I can certainly see the benefits of living off the grid, a sense of community, connection to nature, that sense of independence and living sustainably. What are some other attractions for you? Because I'm an outsider looking in, it seems quite, I suppose it could be quite challenging. It could be quite hard.
Yeah.
It is not for everyone. I'm not off-grid right now. I'm in a little Tico, Costa Rican town right now in a very nice condo. So looking after some pedigree Mancoon cats with a pool. So this is not off-grid. But it is hard. There's, you have to watch the space because there is, we had I guess one of the crazy stories is when I was off-grid, I was looking after a little kitten. I received the kitten. She'd never been there. And I've spent a lot of time with kittens, but the jungles are totally different, ballpark. And it's the wet season. So we have flash floods. Oof. We have like poisonous toads the kittens like to play with. Like the kitten went missing in the jungle one time just before we had a giant storm. And I was out with floodlights looking, and it's dangerous. People get washed away. There's snakes, but I've lived in the bush. I grew up with parents that kind of taught me. We spent a lot of time outside. I'm a Perth girl, so I feel comfortable amongst it. But I had a lot of people. One girl at the other farm next to me, she was there for 2 weeks and left.
Okay.
She couldn't do it. She couldn't handle the isolation because you're physically isolated from other people. So for me, I've got good internal balance, and I'm I can think outside of the box and I'm aware of my environment. So I watch things and I think that just comes with experience. And I don't know, I'm a fairly handy human being. My background's like sculpture, so I can fix things and I sew. And so if things break, I'm the lady tradie and I'll work it out.
Yeah.
That's an Aussie thing, give it a go.
Exactly.
No, I love that attitude, but I think you're right there that it's probably for a certain type of person, and maybe for anyone to, if they've got the dream of doing it, definitely check in with themselves to make sure they're not being totally naive, or if they do have similar skills or outlook to you. It feels like that was one of your wildest sits that you just referred to, with the kitten going missing. I assume you found the kitten.
Yeah. So what happened was, little Nikki Pepper was my little shadow, and a family had walked onto the property with some little kids while I was in the shower, and she'd worked out how to jump off the balcony onto a boulder, and then she followed them and she was playing with the kids, and she's a baby, so she kept following them, but instead of them taking her back to the house, they let her walk for 20 minutes. And then they crossed the river. She was too little, couldn't cross, and then they kept going and left her.
Oh,
and she got and she got lost.
Oh, the
yeah, like just they were German and they hadn't been in the country very long. They didn't understand how dangerous the jungle was. So at that point, we had two other rivers that you had creeks that turned into rivers in the wet season. So that they will rise at any point with the rain, and you have to be safe crossing them. And so in between that time, so the kitten went missing, and then a giant storm came, banks burst, and I've never lost an animal on my like ever. And I had my cat Chelsea for 21 years, so I am like a fierce lioness mother, and
bless you.
So I was out there with floodlights, but because it's such a tight-knit community, because you have to, because it's a safety thing, the family posted on the network and said, hey, we saw a kitten, it followed us, but we just we left it there because it couldn't cross. We thought it would go home, and once they said where the kitten was left, everybody went, oh, that's really far for a kitten, and they didn't understand. They weren't animal people. And then a storm came. And by the time I got the news that she was missing, someone sent me a photo saying, apparently Nikki's down here. I got out of the shower, and I was like, there was a huge distance in the jungle for a little baby kitten to walk, but she just was running and playing and having a great old time. So, sorry about the noise. So yeah, then the storm came. I looked, I was some midnight in the rain looking for this kitten. I looked for like 6 hours.
Oh, darn.
And but luckily all of the community came out and looked for her. We didn't find her at all, and we thought she would be gone. And then the next day in the morning, I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next day in the morning, the family, the father had got up at like 5 a.m. when the water had settled, and he crossed the other two creeks, and he saw all these birds hanging out around this rock, and he was calling out, and she was hiding under a rock, and he just I woke up to him like whistling, and then I opened the door and Nikki just ran down and would not leave my side, and it was just a matter of like timing. It was just the worst timing.
Yeah,
it had just happened. Yeah, and she ate a heap of food. She's so lucky. Most kittens in the jungle can often only live for a year because they get taken by animals.
Yeah, wow. Oh, well, good on you. That's such a beautiful story.
So, Annemarie, it sounds like you're quite a resilient, confident person. I think I'd find it quite challenging. I lived on a cattle station when I was younger, working as a jackaroo, and I can remember us going out to camp on a Saturday night, which is when I'd normally going out night clubbing, sitting around a fire, taking all our food, water, and not being able to shower 3 and 4 days. What has taught you the most about yourself? What have you learned?
Even one of your travel adventures recently, even if it's not a house sit, I suppose.
I think I've learned that I'm very resilient, and I've learned that I think my superpower is being able to think quickly in a situation. And like I don't always need other people. Like I can my brain works in a way that I'll be like, all right, how can I fix this? You know, like, I don't know, whatever random thing it is. And I can put things together. So I think that's really helped me quite a bit. And also, I think I'm pretty calm.
Yes.
I'm very calm.
Nice skill.
I'm very calm.
You have to be.
I could work on that bit. Ask Cooper. Sarah, calm down.
I think that's what it is. Like, I don't just freak out. I'm like, all right. But I've done also very young, I did a little bit of survival training.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, my parents were like, you know, they had a health food shop and they were all about, you know, health, and like we spent a lot of time in the bush and things like that. So kind of
doing what you're meant to be doing, it sounds like. That's very cool. Hey, I'm curious. South and Central America was absolutely on Cooper's and my list before 2020, and we were even planning to be living in Colombia or start there in 2020, but we all know how that ended. Tell us a little bit about your experiences in that part of the world so far, and you know why I assume you'd recommend travel there and house sitting there. Tell us a little bit about South and Central America and why you'd advocate for it as a destination to travel to.
I think the nice thing about this place is Pura Vida is actually a thing. Like, the time here slows down. There is, like, in Australia, I was like working music, I was DJing, I was dressmaking. I had, like, you know, so many jobs. And here I'm still doing many things. I have a couple of businesses, but you have to just relax. Like, things are not done quickly. The processes are not the same, and it really teaches you to slow down. And I think a lot of people come here and it teaches them, like, it really is. Like, people walk past and like, Pura Vida, Pura Vida. And it's like that. You have to chill.
Okay.
And I think that's a massive draw. And the jungle is incredible. Like, the off-grid house I stayed with, the kitten, that was actually my herbalist teacher's house. I did a class, and then she actually ended up asking me to stay there. And so I learned about plants. The plants are incredible, you know? So I feel like, and there's so much difference in the terrain. You will have deep jungle, and then, you know, like where I am right now in Matapolo, it's going to be dry. There's going to be fires. It's kind of probably feel a bit Aussie, because apparently that's what it's like, dry. And then you'll just go over a mountain and it'll be green, forest, rainforest, lush.
Wow.
So all these micro ecosystems. And
so cool.
And there's a real mixed bag of people, and Costa Rican people are just like, they're just lovely. They're so, they're really soft people. Like, they're gentle and kind, and I like it here. Relaxed.
You can imagine the food must be incredible and the cost of living would be quite low. There's a lot of people listening to this podcast and who'd like to follow in your footsteps. How do you sustain yourself on the road? How do you make money?
Well, when I first arrived, I was working at the music venue. So I do like band booking, music PR. So I can do that anywhere in the world. And I do a lot of graphic design as well. So I was just doing graphics and all that stuff. And so I'm still doing that. But I'm also, my other interest is healing. And I have another company where I make like aromatherapy sprays and stuff like that. So I'm doing that as well. So I've been having fun going to markets and meeting, I love meeting people, but meeting locals, and that gives me the balance of the markets is kind of play. And then,
Yeah, that's awesome. For anyone else who's traveling in those parts and wants to, pick up work or create work, so you've been clever and used your skills and you're very resourceful by the sound of it. But I'm taking away that maybe some of your tips are, to really get in amongst the community, whether that's online on a Facebook group and get out to the markets and meet people and just open up opportunities for yourself. What would your advice be to other people who may not have the same skills as you, but, everyone has something that they can adapt, right?
Absolutely. So everything here is done on WhatsApp, which is really interesting. So a lot of the businesses don't have websites. They just have WhatsApp.
Really?
Interesting.
Things like that. And there are WhatsApp groups for regions, and people have like what buy and sell jobs, like anything you can imagine. And there's also like when I got here, the first thing I did was I literally did searches for. I was in San Mateo, Costa Rica. Any groups on Facebook, I joined them.
Okay.
And every region, like I'm in Tamarindo now. I joined the Tamarindo, it was Guanacaste Single Women's Society. And that is just, I mean, a lot of them are gringos, but it's basically, you can post whatever you need or want or what you're looking for, advice. And it really is word of mouth with this place. Like you just learn as you go. So if you just join all those communities, just spend some time on them. You don't have to spend all your time on them, but drop in and then you'll start to see kind of the areas and what your interests are. And I'm even on online graphic design groups. I'm like, just all sorts of stuff because you never know. And also once people know what you do, they will tag you in things. They will send you stuff. They will, and that is a really good way. And like for me, because I've been working in music for 20 years, people in Australia, like in my industry, know what I do. So I've got a lot of work from Australia, but now I'm here. It's like, all right, well, now I've got to do something in Spanish. Okay. So, you know, there's a level of integration. So I just say join as many groups as you can online.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say before when you were talking about like cost of living, actually a lot more expensive here than you think it would be.
Okay.
So, yeah, so there are cheaper areas, but there are a lot of Americans and Canadians here now, and in pockets, it's just as expensive as like America. Mm-hmm. It really is. Everything is priced up, and people don't realize that until they get here. And I didn't realize that.
Okay,
so that is something really, really like pay attention. And for me, like I'm in the Aussie dollar to the US dollar is terrible. So I could. It reminds me of when I was traveling in London. And it was 60 cents for the dollar. That's kind of what it is for me at the moment. So I'm like, my work now is focused on the US dollar.
Yeah, smart.
Me earning Australian dollars. And the money here is, they use colones and US dollars in all trading.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. You've given some awesome advice on being proactive and potentially finding or creating work for yourself. And it feels like a lot of on the house sitting side too. You started out on Trusted House Sitters, and now a lot of sits come by word of mouth. Do you still use Trusted House Sitters and Facebook groups, or are there any other ways that you suggest that anyone who wants to follow in your footsteps can?
I mean, there is a lot of luck involved. I think. I think I'm a pretty lucky person. I generally will always fall on my feet, but I would say Trusted House Sitters. I would also say if you are joining the community groups, let people know what you do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you want to be in an area house sitting, you post and let people know I'm in this area, I'm visiting, I would love to house sit. And you people will be like, oh, it means I can go on a holiday. People might actually, you know what I mean? Like you never know what will be created. Like where I am right now, this was 6 weeks and now it's 4 months. And you know, and this is perfect for me because it means I'm getting a heap of work done. So you know, and I've also met neighbours and each are 10 minutes away, and I'm enjoying not being off grid for a while and you know, having a bit of like a nice normal shower and flushing toilet.
The simple things.
You've got a lovely personality. It doesn't surprise me that you kind of blend in and make friends. So you know, hey, tell us a little bit about your routine for, you know, you've got quite a bit of work that you keep bubbling along. How do you maintain a routine when you're moving about or staying in one place for, you know, yes, you're in some places for a bit longer, like 4 months, for example. But when we were doing it, sometimes I struggled with the routine, like falling in and out of like holiday mode. So yeah, do you have any tips?
Yeah, that is a hard one. I feel like the house sitting is actually a job. Like you've got to really pay attention to, like at where I am at the moment, there was 4 cats and a dog, and 3 of the cats were women. One was a boy cat. I had to keep them separated because they're breeding cats.
Oh.
And then there was a dog. So the house was like, there's a lot going on that you've got to be aware of. So I've had to get really strict with my timetables because suddenly I realized I've spent like hours with these animals.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, no, I just have to so I get up and I do my morning, I'm really strict about my morning routines as far as like meditation, all that, like exercise. So I get up early, I do that stuff. And then I know by a set time I have to start working. And then I kind of try and stop by a set time. And I do ebb and flow. But if I've slacked off during the day, I'll just work later.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just because you do, like with the jungle, stuff happens and you've got to deal with it there and then. But that time that I've lost, I'll try and make up later in the day.
Yeah.
So, you really have to just roll with it. It's really,
Yeah, sounds good.
But it can be hard pushing yourself all the time,
Yep.
But I'm pretty motivated though most of the time.
Yeah, good on you. Hey, what's on the horizon for you for the coming year or so?
I'm not sure.
Roll with it.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I will, personally, with work, I'm kind of launching a whole heap of projects. So I've got lots of work stuff. So it's like the work stuff is that's my focus, and the house sitting, I just kind of know something else will fall into place.
Yeah.
So I'm just I kind of put it out there as well. I'm like, all right, I'll let people know, and
Perfect.
But I definitely good having longer chunks.
So, Annemarie, how can people follow your story online, your adventures? How do your family and friends keep up to date with you?
So I have because I work in music and PR and stuff, I kind of have my life in different areas of sharing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So my Facebook's more my music stuff, and then my Instagram, my Lady Glades, which is my DJ name, is more like just, everybody. And then I have Seeker Supplies, which is my herbalism, healing, that stuff, kind of separate. And then I've got a WhatsApp group, which is my inner circle, and they get more information. I kind of layer it depending on, if I'm doing more plant-based stuff, it goes to Seekers. If I'm just general, I'm out having dinner, I'll post on my Insta, and then Facebook's music.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, we'll pop your most public one, your Instagram, or we'll liaise with you, and we'll pop that on our blog and the podcast page when we launch. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to meet someone like yourself who's just out there taking each day as it comes, but actually making it happen too. It's not by accident. You're intentionally getting amongst your community and meeting people, and one thing happens after another. And I think that's a really nice lesson for everyone. So, thank you very much for sharing your story and giving us some time today.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story. I've had a few people say, why don't you start a blog? And I'm like, I don't want to do more social media.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to at least share some of my stories.
Thanks for joining us on the Freedom and Four Paws podcast. This production has been inspired by our awesome Facebook community. Join the group by searching Pets and House Sitting, Travel and Digital Nomads, or find the group via the link on our Facebook page, Travel, Live, Learn.
This podcast is brought to you by TravelLiveLearn.com. Visit the site today to find out more about this podcast, access show notes, and sign up to our mailing list for free house and pet sitting application templates, guides, and a 25% off registration code for trusted house sitters.
If you love this content and want more of it, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favourite podcast service. You can find us on YouTube too. Look up Travel, Live, Learn. Until next time, give your pet a pat from us and say yes to that next adventure.